Good morning all, and welcome now to a slightly delayed start of the Vale Glamorgan Cabinet meeting of the 30th of March 2023. I'm Councillor Liz Burnett and I'm chair of the meeting as the leader of the Vale Glamorgan Council and Cabinet member for performance and resources. It is a slightly altered cabinet meeting today because we've moved from our normal time of 2 o'clock this afternoon to 11 o'clock to allow us all to attend the funeral of a close colleague and friend. So without further ado, I'll go on to just the basic housekeeping notes that we normally do, in which I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded so people can watch it via the internet at a later date. That all participants should mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback. And if anyone wants to speak, should either raise their hand on screen, if you're on screen, which we normally are, or using the digital function. We'll only use the chat function to highlight any technical issues or to attract the attention either of myself or the Democratic Services Officer. So, as I said, without further ado, if I can get that off my screen, we will move on to the agenda proper. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence, and I have apologies for absence from Councillor Margaret Wilkinson. And apart from that, I can see that I think we're all here. We did have Councillor Ruba Sivanyanam before the fire alarm, so I'm assuming she'll be joining us shortly.
She's connected for you, Leader.
In fact, we do have Councillor Ruba Sivanyanam. That's great.
Apologies for that.
That's fine. So yeah, we're all here now. Next agenda item 2 is minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of March 2023. Can I take those as a true record?
And I'll second those, Leader.
Thank you. And then moving on to agenda item 3, and that's declarations of interest. Do we have any? Nope. Fine. Agenda item 4 is a reference from the Vale of Glamorgan Council's Community Boundary Area Review, and that went to the Community Liaison Committee on the 22nd of March, and has come to us as a reference. Actually quite a comprehensive discussion of the suggestions that the electoral registration officer, or actually I think this is, I've just spotted a typo. Report owner, that would be Rob Thomas, returning officer, I'm sure, not electoral registration officer. But anyway, a comprehensive report which actually makes suggestions in terms of getting effective political. Oh, it is right, it's both. Oh, fair enough. I'm just seeing from Rob a clarification. So to get effective political representation across the Vale, clarifying some boundaries which in some areas are slightly confusing, and ensuring that communities have suitable levels of representation. If you look at paragraph 2.8, that actually lays out the key considerations that were used as a sort of a foundation to this review, and it was looked at by a team which was a cross-party group working with the electoral registration team to come forward with some sort of broad suggestions, which is what they took forward to Community Liaison Committee for discussion. And I think it's fair to say that those suggestions actually still stand. is in terms of where should community councils potentially work together. How do we make sure that where there have been increases in population that those are catered for, etc. It's quite amazing when you look at the report how many community councils have less than 400, and in some cases less than 100 electors within them, and looking at how that can work in the future. So the comments and discussions that were made and suggestions that were made at Community Liaison Committee have already been forwarded to the Boundaries Commission, and so it is recommended that the proposals contained in this report are also forwarded from us to the Boundary Commission by the deadline for the consultation, so that they've got not only the views of the electoral registration team, but they've also got the views of town and community councils across the Vale to take forward to the next stage. So it's fairly straightforward, and I would suggest that really there would be 3 recommendations for us related to this report. Firstly, that we note the comments of those involved in the Community Liaison Committee, which have already been forwarded to the... Actually, I am going to stop here. This fire alarm has taken me slightly out of sync. I have had 2 messages which I will mention, and one was related to St George's and St Bride's Super Ely Community Council, who wasn't happy with the proposals related to that. It was in relation to, and it was sent from the clerk to St George's and St Bride's Super Ely Community Council, and that's why I'm saying that their comments will be forwarded, and also they can make their own representations to the Boundaries Commission. And also a message from Councillor Ian Perry, who has commented that broadly supportive, but he was also discussing the topic of the change to the number of clerks to community councils that might be needed if a review went through, although recognise that some community council clerks actually service more than one community council, so it could be the same people. So just making sure that has been noted, that I'd received those 2 messages. So as I said, the first thing is to note the comments of those involved in the Community Liaison Committee, which have already been forwarded to the Boundary Commission. Second recommendation is that the suggestions of the Glamorgan Council, as laid out in the original report, are forwarded to the Boundary Commission for their consideration. And thirdly, and I need to get the words right on this, that we use the urgent decision procedure, that's section 15.14 of the Constitution, in order that the comments of Cabinet at today's meeting can be forwarded to the Commission urgently following the consultation deadline of the 28th of March. So we've had a couple of days leeway on that, but we need to get those over to them today as soon as possible. And so those are the 3 recommendations before us, and I would move.
And I'll second the recommendations.
And Mark, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. I mean, it was a really good meeting because, as you know, I am Vice Chair of the Community Liaison Committee, and and there were some really good contributions by lots of town and community council representatives, and they made a series of suggestions which we obviously are noted those suggestions. But I thought what was important, though, is that some of these town and community councils do not have elections. And I think what we need to make sure, we need to address that democratic deficit so that these bodies will have viable councils going forward where they have elections. I also note that the major towns in the Vale always seem to have elections, and I think that is very telling. And I would like to see, you know, these communities that work together closely together so they have viable councils going forward, and they can address those democratic deficits so they have proper elections, and therefore they can really truly represent the people that they supposed to, in quotation marks, represent. So thank you.
Super. And Gwyn, I can see you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, very much. As I have been involved in giving advice and drafting a response for a constituent, I shall abstain from voting.
Super. Thank you for letting us know on that one. So therefore I've moved it. Bronwyn seconded it. Is everyone else happy on that? Yeah, we're okay. Super. So moving on to agenda item 5. This is the reports of a meeting, and these are the minutes of the Cardiff Capital Regional Cabinet meeting of Monday the 30th of January, where I was present. In that we discussed a number of things. One was the Joint Committee revenue budget. Then we looked at the Cardiff Capital Region business plan, and also then looked at the Regional Economic and Industrial Plan 2023. And there was discussion there about how we disseminate that so that people within local authorities across the region are fully informed of the proposals on that. So discussions are ongoing in terms of how we bring that to individual local authorities. But that's fairly straightforward. Gwyn, I can see that you've got your hand up. Is that a legacy hand?
Legacy, Leader, and problems
Super,
getting it down, yeah.
Excellent. So yes, fairly straightforward minutes. I mean, again, their meetings are available to watch online as well if anyone's interested. So on that note, I would move that we note.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. And everyone's happy with that? Yeah. Moving on to agenda item 6, and this is the last stage, in effect, of when we go through our planning process, where at first, you know, we have the 5-year corporate plan. That is distilled down into an annual plan, which is our annual delivery plan. And once the annual delivery plan is agreed, then each service area will develop its service plans, which then, you know, govern their activities through the next year. When this actually comes back to us, when we're reviewing the annual delivery plan going forward, through our scrutiny committees and through Cabinet, we will be scrutinising whether or not the activities undertaken by our service areas are contributing to that annual plan, and ultimately whether that annual plan then delivers for the corporate plan. So those are all laid out in Appendix A, and they have all been to all scrutiny committees as well. And I'm just looking at this. Hang on, I did put that. If you look at paragraph 2.22 onwards on page 8, there is a summary of comments and recommendations from all scrutiny committees, so that each scrutiny committee noted and endorsed the planned activities and returned them to us for our consideration. So, as I said, these are the things that basically fall out of the annual delivery plan, which has already been agreed. So therefore, I would just bring the following recommendations to you on this, and that's that firstly, that Cabinet review and approve the planned service activities for 2023-24 as contained in service plans attached at Appendix A. 2, that Cabinet review and approve the proposed measures and service performance targets aligned to the corporate plan performance measures framework for 2023-24, and that's attached to Appendix B, so that's how we're going to measure whether or not we've delivered against these. And 3, that again, the use of urgent decision procedure as set out in section 1514 of the Council's Constitution be approved to ensure that monitoring of planned service activities and associated performance targets aligned to the annual delivery plan 2023-24 commences from the 1st of April 2023 at the start of the financial year. So in effect, we want to use the urgent decision procedure because this has all been through scrutiny, and we actually want to get to work on it from the 1st of April. So on that basis, I would move.
And I'll second that, Leader.
Thank you. Everyone happy with those service plans? We've all signed them all off individually anyway, as we work with our teams. Moving on, that's my items finished today. So moving on, I'm going to hand over to the Cabinet or Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Sustainable Places, and we're going to hear about Eco4 Flex, whatever it is. Anyway, the Eco4 scheme, and I'm intrigued. Over to you, Bronwyn.
Thank you very much, Liz. Yeah, this report is the Eco4 Flex Joint Statement of Intent and the Memorandum of Understanding. And I knew I was going to end up tripping over those words. It was such a long title. But basically, the ECO stands for the Energy Company Obligation, and it's a UK government scheme. And that places legal obligations on energy suppliers to deliver energy efficiency measures to domestic premises, which obviously then are designed then to help tackle fuel poverty and also help reduce our carbon emissions long term. Now, the scheme is administered by the Office of Gas and Electricity Markets, which, as we know, is Ofgem, and BEIS, which is the Department of Business for Energy and Industrial Strategy. So this is the latest iteration of ECO, and this one is known as Eco4. And then this focuses on improving our least energy efficient homes, as only properties in standard assessment procedure band D to G can be treated. And then it also requires a more complete upgrade of these homes. And what we're actually looking is to move to this whole house retrofit approach. So that's the way we're actually going to be approaching this. And this is about upgrading properties energy efficiency rating of 2 SAP bands, which is that standard assessment procedure. And what that means is that we're looking at retrofit measures such as solid walls, cavity, floor and lofted insulation, and or the repair and replacement of broken heating systems, and the installation of renewable heating systems such as air source heat pumps and solar panels. So under the Ofgem guidance, the flexible eligibility element to Eco4, which is known as Eco4 Flex, it actually allows the local authorities to set our own criteria for identifying and targeting those households that meet the eligibility requirements. So the Eco4 Flex is there for a household referral mechanism within the wider Eco4 scheme. And that obviously then, that works for us. And basically what that means is we'll have a little bit more scope of how we can target households. And we'll be working with organisations such as the NHS, social services, citizen advice about how we can target and try and, reach out to all of those households who are eligible. Now, the scheme is actually being coordinated by the Cardiff Capital Region, and that's in an effort then to maximise the funding opportunities that exist for the whole of the region, albeit on a local authority basis. And this is where the draft joint statement of intent, which is at Appendix 1, and then a draft memorandum of understanding, which is at Appendix 2. So they've been prepared for consideration and review by the council prior to this scheme. And so there's a fair bit of work that's actually gone into that, about how we actually tap into households, but also at the same time about sharing data and information around GDPR, because obviously there's a huge amount of work to do around that. As I said, the aim of both the capital city region and the council is to alleviate fuel poverty and obviously contribute towards our energy efficiency targets. Now, basically, this is open to private homeowners and also tenants in rental properties as well. So, you know, it's quite a broad spectrum. We've got 4 years of funding available for us, and that actually, the scheme started then on the 1st of April 2022. And then we'll run for, as I said, for that 4-year period till the 31st of March 2026. So I've got 3 recommendations before us. Is that the first one is that Cabinet notes the contents of the report and endorses the participation of the council in the Eco4 Flex scheme. Secondly, that the Director of Place is confirmed as the dedicated responsible person for the Eco4 Flex scheme and authorised signatory for the joint statement of intent and memorandum of understanding. And then thirdly, that delegated authority be granted to the Director of Place in consultation with myself as the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Sustainable Places to agree the final format of and any necessary typographical changes and minor amendments to the Eco4 Flex Joint Statement of Intent and Memorandum of Understanding, which is a bit of a mouthful there, prior to publication, and thereafter update with any factual updates in response to policy or legislative changes as appropriate. And I so move those 3 recommendations.
Thank you. I'm very happy to second that, and thank you for going through that with us. I think it's a really interesting scheme, which could make quite a sizable difference to a lot of Vale residents. So thank you for that. Is everyone else happy with that report? Yep, all in agreement. So let's have a look. Agenda item 8 is also for the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Sustainable Places, and this is funding and delivery of the Green Links community transport service, which is essential for so many of our residents. So over to you, Bron.
It is indeed, Leader. Thank you for that. Just a bit of background. Green Links now has actually been operational for 12 years, which I must admit, I didn't realise how long it had actually been running. And basically, the service is operated using permits issued by sections 19 and 22 of the Transport Act 1985. So that's the technical terms of how we can run the service. And it forms part of the council's provision of public transport throughout the Vale of Glamorgan, and it does provide that essential service for those with no access to local public or private transport, or those who are unable to access public transport due to physical or mental abilities. Now, this is an update on the Green Link service and about our proposal and about funding it for the next year until March 2024, which will be with Section 106 Sustainable Transport Contributions. And I think just as a bit of background, obviously the Green Links was up and running and very proactive and really hitting quite large numbers in our communities and really popular. But obviously the impact of COVID upon that has had that detrimental impact, as it has on a lot of these sort of schemes. But I think with getting this up and running again properly and about putting the funding there in place, it will allow us then to actually promote this service within our communities. And that's a plea for everybody, actually, is to promote the service amongst all of our residents, and for town and community councils to actually take that same approach, so that people are aware of the service and what a great little service it actually is, because it's really tailor-made to what you can book it for. Now, it operates on a membership scheme, and actually we've got over 2,500 individual memberships and 124 group memberships since its inception. And since the last report, which is in January 2021, which is obviously just still within that COVID period, we've still gained 171 new members into the service. And then with that, we've got 7 vehicles. And I think that's what people don't always quite realise, is actually the diversity of that service, because we've got 2 12-seater buses, 2 9-seaters, and actually 3 cars, and all of which are accessible. And I think that is really important part of our service to offer. So we operate with 1 paid driver, 10 volunteer drivers, and then 2 office staff. And you know, so it's a small team, but it's such an essential team. And I know we're always looking then to recruit other volunteers to help us with that service. And I think if you look at sort of paragraph 1.5, I think there you've got a really good example about the Dinas Powys voluntary concern, and about the service and the service that they provided then in relation to the medical practice. And then that is, it's really taken off on its own. And I think that service was so widely used and is widely used with that. And that's continuing to work well now. So it's picked up after COVID, and that is really running very well. Now, the service operates between 9 AM and 4 PM on a Monday to Friday. However, it is also available then to hire in the evenings or weekends for group members. And I know things for like the Surf Club have used it, and it can be used for walking. Whatever your group is, it is available to hire for those times. So that is where we are at the moment. But I would like to emphasise that, you know, there are big issues out there at the moment with commercial services in relation to public transport. And I think Green Links is a really vital role, or plays a vital role in operating areas within the Vale that they wouldn't have, as I already mentioned, they wouldn't have access to public transport, and people wouldn't be able to live as independently or as confidently. So I really think there's such an important role. And one of the remits going forward is that we've got the Section 106 money up until March next year. But it also needs to be emphasised that the team are actually looking then for funding from then on in to actually keep this vital service operational. And I think that is really important. So with that, I've got 3 recommendations. The first one is that the Green Links Community Transport Service continues to be funded by Section 106 Sustainable Transport Contributions until the 31st of March 2024. Secondly, that a further report is presented to Cabinet later on in 2023, once other sources of funding to purchase a replacement vehicle and continuation of the service after the 1st of April 2024 have been investigated. And then thirdly, that the Section 106 contributions, which are highlighted in Appendix D, are earmarked to fund the service during the financial year 23-24, unless other sources of finance are identified. And I'd like to move those 3 recommendations.
Thank you, Bron. Absolutely delighted to do that. And funny enough, I suppose 2012, I was cabinet member for Green Link, so I suppose that was fairly close to its inception, and I've always had a real soft spot for it. I know that that Mark and I have actually used it for residents group trip out, and it was hugely successful. So would certainly suggest that groups investigate and make use of it in terms of getting about. And all the voluntary drivers are super, absolutely lovely. So yeah, I'm happy to second, and I'm assuming that we are all in agreement. Excellent. And then, Bronwyn, you're getting all the good reports today. We're on to agenda item 9, and that is again, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Sustainable Places, and that's the proposed events programme for 2023-24. Over to you, Bronwyn.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'm delighted to bring this report because we are facing very challenging times, huge challenges and around the budget, and it's these sort of services that are directly impacted. Well, all our services are directly impacted, but it's our decision that we're trying to protect as many of our services as possible. And I'm delighted that we've been able to protect this service, to an extent. Obviously, that there is a slight reduction in what we're able to do, but actually it's also then thinking about outside the box, thinking, how can we deliver? How can we still offer a programme of events? And I think what will come through if you do read the report is about that partnership working with other organisations and with town and community councils, how important that is. And it's about everybody working together to deliver these valuable events. So, I mean, each year the council has organised and has supported a successful and actually a lovely diverse programme of events right across the Vale. And they're important to boost the local economy. It also attracts higher footfall, higher spend, obviously, within those. And then also it enhances and increases our tourism offer. And I firmly believe does improve the quality of life for our residents. And I think that is really, really important. If you go on to page 4 and you look at sort of between 1.5 and then 1.10, you can actually have a look at the events that we offered in previous years and also 22-23. And I think if you look at that there, again, that highlights about this partnership working. And I think that is so important for us. And that will to work with other organisations to offer that programme. And obviously, I need to add on to that is any income that we do generate within 23-24 will be used to offset the corporate reserve rather than growing events. So you could say it's a little bit of a standstill report, but actually I don't think it is. I think it's about thinking outside that box. What can we still offer, who we can work with, and to actually offer a solid programme of events across the Vale, which obviously directly impact all of our residents and the traders in our business and economy. So on page 5 and under number 2 and 2.2, this mentions about Appendix A, you actually look at the programme or the main elements of the programme events that we're actually proposing. And obviously this includes our 8-week Barry Weekender summer programme, the Popular Food Festival and the Welsh programmes there. And then about making sure that we try and include all the 4 town centres, which is really important, as we are actually spreading our economic future across those. And then obviously the Christmas tree and lights, which is in Barry, that is a firm favourite, and I think really it sort of kicks off, I think, any other sort of events that we hold around the Christmas period. And then there will be a new fund to support community events across the county. And that's a very clear focus on supporting that community cohesion. And then there will be a fund then to support the smaller miscellaneous events. And for the coming year, that will include obviously support for coronation events, because obviously that's a one-off for this year, and obviously the Pride events as well. And we do include that provision then for licence costs, which are associated with the legalities associated with events then. So with that in mind, I have four recommendations. The first recommendation is that Cabinet notes the content of the report and the update on the successful 22-23 event programme, alongside the growth in the use of Visit the Vale website and social media. Secondly, that Cabinet approves a proposed series of events in a revised corporate events programme for 23-24, and that's described in the body of the report and then also in Appendix A. Thirdly, that Cabinet authorises the use of reserve funding for 23-24, and this is to contribute to the overall budget for the corporate event programme and the proposals to minimise the use of the reserve, and that's through a combination of charging and fee income, other income, grant funding, sponsorship, and securing sustainable events which can be self-sustaining. And I think this leads us into the work that we're trying to do to make sure that our events are sustainable, and as far as possible that they sort of do pay their way, albeit supporting residents and traders and business as well. And then fourthly, that Cabinet delegates authority to the Director of Place in consultation with myself as the Cabinet Member for Sustainable Places to implement changes to the events programme and approve the allocation of funding to specific events within the overall agreed total budget. And I'd like to move those recommendations.
Thank you. Thanks, Bron. I think Mark wants to come in next.
Yeah, thank you very much, Deputy Leader. I think that was an excellent report, and I'd just like to make some observations. I mean, I think when people put on events, they need to give us as much notice as possible, because some people don't always appreciate and realise what they need to do in order to get an event to take place within this authority or other local authorities. But I would like to also emphasise here that on Appendix A, if you look on Appendix, notably row 3 and row 4, we have got funds there to support such events as well. So I would say anyone who wants to put on an event is let us know as soon as possible. We've got excellent officers that can help and support you here. And we will be very interested in events in different places and in different areas of the Vale of Glamorgan. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. If Mark didn't second, I will. I think this is a super report, and I think it's fair to say there's been an awful lot of discussion about whether we could afford to do events or not. And so a lot of work's being done with the team, a lot of conversations with town and community councils, because over the past years, we've increasingly worked in partnership with town and community councils to support their events. And I know, Penarth Festival, we would be working alongside in terms of things like road closures, that sort of stuff. That Barry Town Council has worked very closely with the Vale, with the Santa's post box and all those sorts of things, which are hugely successful at Christmas time. And also, I think it's fair to say that organisations, I think it's this year, isn't it? Glastonbury's celebrating its 10th anniversary, and we've worked with them right from the start to support what is a phenomenal weekend, I have to say. So we are up for working with absolutely anyone who can develop activities which will encourage people to come and visit our resorts and destinations, or will come and revisit our shopping centres and take another look at them, potentially doing their shopping there as well. So I know there's some interesting stuff over Easter in our town centres, and hopefully I'll be going to the Penarth one. So really good news that we've been able to do this, Bronwyn, and I think that we're all wholeheartedly in support of this. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so the final report today is over to the Cabinet Member for Education, Arts and Welsh Language, and that's related to school admissions arrangements for next year. So that's not this year, 2024-25. So that's over to Rhiannon.
Thank you very much, Leader. The Council has a statutory duty to consult on school admission arrangements annually and to determine the arrangements for 24 to 25 following conclusion of the consultation, which has to be concluded by the 15th of April 2023. If Cabinet don't approve this proposed school admissions policy, the existing arrangements agreed for 23-24 would be adopted for 24-25 to ensure that the statutory requirement to determine the policy by 15th of April of this year is met. Statutory consultees have been consulted on the proposed admission arrangements. These would include the governing body of the relevant schools, all neighbouring local authorities, admission authorities for all other maintained schools in the relevant area, governing bodies of all other schools in the relevant area, such as community and voluntary controlled schools, which do not have delegated admission powers. And in the case of schools with a religious character, such body or person representing the religious denomination in question. However, the Council did not receive any comments from consultees to the consultation process, which means that I hope that we will accept the report as it stands, and the coordinated admissions programme will be reviewed after the conclusion of the admissions round, which is in September of this year. There is an equality impact assessment with a comprehensive list of characteristics that needed to be considered during this report, and the results of these are either neutral or a positive impact. So if we could look at the recommendations, please, contained in the Appendix A has got the entire document in it. So could we consider this report and the other appendices, which is B, and that we could approve those two, please? Are we happy to do that? Yes. Liz, you're on mute.
There was me saying I wouldn't go on mute today. Yes, happy to second those two recommendations.
Thank you.
Everyone else happy on those? Excellent. So those are that's the end of the agendaed items. I don't have anything that is urgent or anything that is part two, whether urgent or not urgent. So on that note, I will draw the meeting to a close and thank everyone for their attendance.